right, we have returned to open session. At this time, is there any public comment?
There's the sheets right there.
All right. So we have Debbie Alm.
I think I spoke one. Sorry. I'm here tonight. It's Debbie Alm. I've been a Riverside resident since 1996. And I've just been informed or read about the new Pritzker law of the national sex education standards, and that he adopted into law. And he sent it apparently to all 860 Illinois school districts, and only 24 of them have adopted it. The rest are waiting, reviewing, talking to parent bodies, publishing statements about the curriculum on their websites. And you guys adopted it. District 96 adopted it right away. And I guess what I'm wondering is what information in the NSCS was so critical for you to adopt it right away, and without, I think, really parent knowledge, because there's nothing about it on the website. And I've done some research about the curriculum itself, and I'm wondering if you think it's important that, you know, ages 11 to 13 need to read and learn about the gender bread diagram, which is what they use in 5th through 8th grade to describe the different kinds of parts of your body. They use a gingerbread cookie. And in that curriculum, it says that in the brain is where your sexual identity is, and that your genitalia is only how you have sex. It has nothing to do with your gender. I saw another piece of class program in the curriculum that talks about consent to 11-year-olds, consent to sexual activity. Consent obviously implies the word yes, and I just don't see how that should be in anything K through 3. So I'm just wondering if you guys have or could share information about why you guys felt it was so important to adopt the curriculum so quickly.
We're not allowed to interact with you.
Yes. It's public comment, so
Yes.
we can put it on, talk about it at a future meeting, or just, yeah, but we
Okay.
can't.
Great.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any additional public comment? Okay. All right. At this time, are there any proposed changes to the agenda? All right. Then that takes us to the superintendent's report.
All right. Sharing with you here on September 21st, our enrollment update. I know it's something we look at regularly, but in particular here as we're settling into our first month of school, I wanted to make sure that you had our most recent enrollment update. Actually looks at the end of August data, but it's really the children that were enrolled here on the first day of school. You had also asked to look at Hauser enrollment by section, because we know that we had modified some sections based on some teacher changes, et cetera. So I wanted to make sure that the board and the community had that overview of information. If there's any questions about that. The other thing I have to share tonight is a State Board of Education special education overview. So each year the Illinois State Board of Education looks at all of our compliance metrics with our special education programs and services. I have been bringing that to you annually. I think it's an important document for you all to see. It indicates our 100% compliance with things. It looks like a pretty quick and simple report, but it really represents a lot of support services and careful attention to ensuring that our 3-year-olds who have identified special needs are enrolled at the correct time with the right services, that we really carefully consider the least restrictive environment in all of our student placement. So again, kudos to Pam Shaw and to our new associate director, Nora Garrity, on that. So anyway, wanted to make sure that you had all that. The other is just kind of news update information. We have a student assembly actually going on this Friday. A man named Salva Dutt coming from, who talks about bringing clean water to the South Sudan. It's an interesting story. He'll be doing an assembly at Hauser. He'll be doing an assembly at Ames. There's actually a group of Ames students that wrote to him, raised money for clean water. This was all just before the pandemic, or just as the pandemic was hitting. And so the prize for the fundraising essentially was that he would come and speak to the group directly, which is why he's speaking at Ames and at Hauser, because the students are now 8th graders in terms of the students that wrote, made this request. So, but he'll also be talking to the Ames 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders, because Ames is where the project had originated. So a nice story, proud of our kids for taking on these important issues and topics and caring so much. So thanks to Catherine Dykes, who's one of our teachers who made that happen with a group of kids. And she's now a 5th grade teacher at Blythe. She had been our advanced learning teacher at the time. So. And then we have a parent presentation coming up on October 12th. Carrie Goldman is a social emotional learning expert in the area. She spoke to our parent community several years ago, also worked with Hauser staff. Her sort of the gist of her topic is a strong anti-bullying message, but also looking at and sort of helping parents and staff understand what's normal social conflict and what's bullying. And I think it's a really important presentation for families, for parents specifically, and then she's also going to come and do some specific professional development just for Hauser staff, and she's going to work and do a student assembly for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade over the course of time. It's going to take us a couple different dates, but the parent night is October 12th, and the other dates are sort of over the course of time in October. So that is Superintendent's report, unless there's other questions about any of those items.
No? All right. And moving on, we have the consent agenda. We do not have the board secretary, so can the acting board secretary review tonight's consent agenda?
That's me or you? I don't know who's the acting. Oh, no. The consent agenda is as follows. Minutes of the previous meetings, minutes of the August 3rd, 2022 Committee of the Whole Board Self-Evaluation meeting, minutes of the closed session, August 3rd, 2022, minutes of the closed session, August 17th, 2022, minutes of the regular business meeting, August 17th, 2022, and the personnel report as presented. Payables pre-list as of September 21st, 2022, payables pre-list as of August 31st, 2022, collaboration with Northern Illinois University and the P20 network, EIS administrator and teacher salary and benefits report 2022.
All right. Thank you, acting secretary.
Yeah, I didn't know I was, but sure thing.
All right. Then at this time, is there a motion that the Board of Education approve tonight's consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second.
All right. And I should ask, are there any items that would need to be removed from our discussion for consent agenda?
Nope.
Okay. If not.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I don't need it removed, but I always just like to mention I was not present at the August 17th regular business meeting. I did get a chance to watch the recording. In regards to the minutes of the closed session, I trust my board and secretary with the accuracy of the minutes, but you don't need to remove it. Just like to state it.
All right. Thank you for that clarification. Anything else? All right. If not, Kathy, can you call the roll?
Okay, Mr. Marholt?
Aye.
Mr. Barsadi?
Aye.
Ms. Gunn?
Aye.
Ms. Murphy?
Aye.
And Mr. Hunt?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes.
Okay, next on our agenda is Riverside Education Council. I don't believe we have anyone here this evening. All right, and next are board member comments. Is anyone else at Blythe Park Rainbow Run? Anybody else? Yeah, no, yeah. I did not run. I did not participate. My kids did that participating for me. I've done that once, and once was enough, I think. But that is definitely a lot of fun. That's a great time, and honestly, we had a huge crowd there. I don't know if you'd heard anything
I
on
came
that.
just before all the paint started flying, so yeah, I popped in as they were getting set up. So, but from the pictures I saw on Instagram, it looked like a great event, a great
It looked
crowd.
very cute.
Definitely a great time. A couple trips around Blythe. You get covered in different, reds, greens, blues, and then you get ice cream at the end. It's a pretty good deal.
And it's been a really great start to the school year. It's nice to see a lot of events that perhaps we've traditionally held in the past, kind of resuming kind of some of the in-person community building aspects of what we do. So it's just been nice to kind of see it kick off again.
I know starting to start with school year, the fifth graders now have gotten their instruments. My daughter's a fifth grader, or one of my daughter. So she's very excited about that. Very, very excited. Though I think she's now rethinking the thought of she probably shouldn't pick the cello because that's a pretty big instrument to lug around.
It's hard to bike with.
Yes, exactly.
Hard to bike with. Yeah.
That is exciting.
All right, anything else? It's definitely good to be back into school and have a new school year starting. Things seem to be going well at the start. All right, then that brings us to committee reports. First up is Policy Committee.
Things are still quiet on the policy front. I believe we'll have more at the COW meeting in early October with regards to just potential adoption of an ongoing process by which we can continually monitor all of our policies. So more to come on that, just for board discussion to see if that's something we're looking to explore for the future. Otherwise, no other press updates that I've been made aware of. I'm not sure when the next one will surprise itself and appear on my doorstep.
We will wait with great anticipation for the next one.
Keep that disco ball. Just wait for it. Just wait.
It's coming.
Yeah.
It will come, definitely will. All right, if nothing else from the Policy Committee, that brings us to Facilities.
Thanks, Dan. Actually, we'll save our discussion for old business later in this meeting, but we did meet last week and actually discussed all the items that we'll be speaking about in a moment and presenting publicly.
Okay, and that next up then is Education.
Nothing new at this time. We did meet, the Education Committee met last Friday with Martha and Angela. And as you know, the last few meetings, we've been discussing the KPI, the key performance indicators for the strategic plan. So look forward to having that in a document that's more, solidified to move forward. But yeah, nothing else.
We'll bring that all to Cal when it's committee of the whole.
All right, and last but not least is Finance.
Nothing to report. The audit's still going on, so that's going moves well. And I'm meeting with Jim, and I are meeting next week. It's next week, I think, right, Jim? I know it's on my calendar. We're meeting,
next week,
so.
yeah.
So,
All right,
more to come.
sounds good, and that would bring us to old business. The first item is the resolution for transfer. So is there a motion that the board approve the resolution authorizing the interfund loan in the amount of $3 million from the Education Fund to the Capital Projects Fund as presented?
So moved.
Second.
All right, is there discussion on this? Jim, was there any statement to be said on this, or any?
It's less than we had budgeted, so if we need to later, we still have some room in the budget to move more. But this is just a part of it.
Okay.
And this is actually a permanent transfer.
This is a what, I'm sorry?
It's a permanent transfer and not a loan.
I think it was listed as a loan. Do we need to change that? Where did I read it as a loan? In the motion, okay. I'm sorry, I'll read the motion again.
There's a question about it being a permanent transfer compared
Yeah,
to a
it's a
loan.
permanent transfer.
Yep.
Okay, I'm sorry, it's, we'll have to change this here. So yeah, actually, let me read this again then. Is there a motion the board approve the resolution authorizing the permanent transfer in the amount of $3 million from the Education Fund to the Capital Projects Fund as presented?
So moved.
Second.
All right, so yes, anything else? Is there anything of note of why it's a permanent transfer as opposed to a loan?
We intend to spend it out of that account.
Okay,
We don't have any income in that fund to pay it back.
yeah. All right. Okay, any further questions or discussion?
This is just a further part of our process of improving our facilities, and that $3 million will partially go to some of the things we're going to talk about in the next agenda item.
Okay. Makes sense. Well, are we ready to vote?
Yep.
All right, Kathy, can you call the roll?
Okay, Mr. Barsadi?
Aye.
Okay, Ms. Gunn?
Aye.
Ms. Murphy?
Aye.
Mr. Marhol?
Aye.
And Mr. Hunt?
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right, I'm sorry, I'm refreshing here. It's taking forever for some reason. Okay. All right, the next up are long-range facility plan updates. The first one is the Hauser Auditorium. Joe, actually, I'll let you take that.
That the Hauser Auditorium simply is the fact that our bid documents, we have released our documents out for bid. And so the contractors have 11 days to assess the plans and provide their estimated cost, and then those bids will be opened up in end of the month. And this is specifically for the Hauser Auditorium updates to the audiovisual system and electrical.
And we have Jim and DLA, both Ryan Kelly and Steve Wright here, so we kind of thought we would give the board a most current update on these kind of three major projects that are pending at different stages. So update, but also opportunity for the board to ask DLA any questions about that.
Okay. Well, it seems like we're getting closest on the Hauser Auditorium.
Yes.
Sure, by all means.
Good evening. I'm Ryan Kelly with DLA. I think Joel said it well. We're out for bid this week with the Hauser Auditorium, which includes lighting, sound, and some architectural work related to that. So bids should be due at the end of the month. So we'll be working with contractors to field questions and work to get the best competitive bids.
So I know previously the cost estimates for this had gone up dramatically, or we're still comfortable with the last estimates that were given, or we'll find out when the bids come in?
A little of everything. The cost estimate had gone up. As we know, inflation has continued to rise. We're comfortable with the work in that there's very little scope that isn't equipment related, which is pretty quantifiable. What I will say is that inflation and the market continues to rise. So we'll be working with contractors throughout the next couple of weeks to figure out where they're seeing their costs, and ultimately we'll find that out at the end of the month.
So Ryan, do we anticipate that the bid approval would come back to the board for October board, or we need to make that October COW a special meeting?
We're anticipating the October COW on October 5th. If we hear something different, obviously we'll work with the administration to, adjust that to the later October board meeting.
Well,
So-
given that we're not talking about construction until the next summer, is that?
We've got plenty of time, yeah.
Mhm.
So if we find out that either pricing or contractors would need more time to get better pricing, then we've got the opportunity to push that bid back a little bit and still have time to place equipment purchase orders.
Have there been any rumblings about availability of equipment?
Not with AV. I mean, it's really all AV, electrical some, but again, in that construction wouldn't start until June of '23. We're in pretty good shape. So as long as we award and place equipment orders by the end of the year, we should be in really good shape.
Anything else on Hauser?
No.
All right. Shall we move on to Blythe?
Yes, and DLA is here to continue a little bit of a presentation on where it stands.
So just an update a little bit on Blythe Park. A couple of boards. Brought the hard copies because we're gonna.
We share these at the Blythe PTA meeting next week.
Exactly, we're gonna leave these in your care and share these with the PTCU meeting next week. But as you see on the screen here, this is the auditorium renovation. We are at our 50% mark, which is a pretty big milestone in terms of generating the construction documents. It's when we start to really coordinate all of the consultants and get a good idea for price. We've done a cost estimate, and now we're going to refresh that. So Ramesh is going to be working on those figures. But what you see here is the auditorium. On the screen here, you've got at the top our opened up performance space. So that's going to allow for a lot of the functions that existed before in a little bit of a different way. As we move down to the next image, we've got the operable partition, and so we can close that room off. And so below that, you're seeing the library area, which would be closest to the main stair. And then on the other side of that is the music room. So keeping flexibility in mind, it gives you the opportunity to operate this space in several different ways. So, and what you'll see here on the board is, I can put it up on the screen too, is our renovated art room, which will be in the now library space. And that will have lots of natural light. It's actually came out of our programming session and a suggestion from a community member. As we were sitting in this room talking about natural light and the fact that art needed natural light, they said, what about this room? And so we took that and ran with it, and I think it's going to be a great solution. So that's the design for that. Brings light in, new coloring casework, and should be a good space for that function.
And Ryan, that photo is looking...
that is looking to the south. So
right,
you are,
and it does not show the fact that we're maintaining some of that original woodwork.
no, it does not. You're correct. It does not. And there's also an existing wood bas relief that will stay in that room. Obviously, it's very appropriate for the art room, so we'll maintain that as well. So, and actually, you make a good point. I'll back up one slide to point out probably most visible at the bottom in the music room, the wood paneling on either side in the Blythe Auditorium. We're going to repurpose that and reuse that as the backdrop for the stage. So keeping some of that historical context and character intact. The other things that I would point out in the floor plan, which are very small but are a function of this, we will be adding an ADA lift that will have stops at the gymnasium, the lobby level, and the lower level as well. So thereby making all of those levels accessible, which they aren't today. So that's a big piece of this project. We will be set to go out to bid on November 7th, and we'll keep working through the process of getting those construction documents together.
And same thing with that, so that would, I mean, I know there's a time after the bid where there needs to be some research and looking at the quality of the bidders.
We would be looking for board approval in December. I think December 20th is the board meeting, if I'm not mistaken. That one will be key. We are doing a boiler replacement as part of this project. That boiler is due, and the economy of scale makes sense to include it with this project. So we're not seeing the long lead time items on boilers like we are on some other equipment. So we're in good shape there, but we will want to get that equipment order placed as quickly as possible as well.
So in terms of this design, particularly where you're talking about the open windows, so the grounds are the changes to the grounds are being held to a small degree. I guess the amphitheater in particular is not being touched by this?
No. This is on the other side of the building.
Yeah.
Correct. The amphitheater is not being touched by this.
The art room is the current library,
Correct.
and then
So I can point it
the
out.
music, performance, and library space is the current
I'm going to point it out
auditorium.
here because I'm horrible with the
Yeah.
So we're right here. This is the gymnasium next to it, and then this is the lower level.
The amphitheater is up this way.
Yeah, so the amphitheater is
And this,
right over
this
here.
drawing doesn't necessarily depict the fact that the rest of the school is off this way.
Yeah, you can see the whole building.
So there's no relationship between the two,
So this is all interior renovation work,
plus the windows.
plus the windows. So we have, good point, we have gone through the Preservation Historic Commission and passed, so that is good. So they're in support of this project, and we'll be going to the Planning and Zoning Committee next week for site plan review. And that looks, we've worked with the administration there, so we're in good shape, no variations that we're requesting. So that should be hopefully a quick process.
And just to note that at this point, we've separated the parking lot work from this interior renovation work because there's additional outside agencies that will be
Yes.
involved in the water and
Yes.
zoning, permitting issues.
Yeah, so we've already submitted for engineering review for the parking lot. Site plan review is part of that for planning and zoning. And then after that takes place, then we submit to MWRD for their review. So knowing that all takes time, we hope that that will be concluded, and we think that it will by the end of this year, about the time that we're ready to award that bid.
So we're hoping that we're not giving up any economies of scale then?
There would be no economies. The outside work is site work, which is generally a different contractor, and something would be subbed out no matter what if you combined them.
And we would bid it as one project, but we would permit it separately. So we don't lose any economy of scale, we just separate them for permitting purposes. Any questions?
I feel like we've talked about this so much that at this point.
I think we've talked about it a
More
lot.
complicated.
Exactly,
one
I'm like, I don't
so,
know
yeah.
questions.
We've definitely talked about it a lot. I guess in terms of the auditorium that's there in the basement now, I think I've heard that some parts were being repurposed. I don't know if there's anything to be done with any of the other material that's pulled out, or if there's any point in preserving some of it or displaying some of it or something. I don't know.
I
It's
think
just a
that-
question.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the wood paneling is certainly worth preserving, and that's our intent. Beyond that, I would leave it up to the district.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think
Certainly
anything
can
has struck
accommodate
us as,
anything that,
you know,
anything, if there are things that would want to be salvaged and turned over to the district for contemplation or for whatever purpose, we can certainly include that in the bid documents.
unless you find something really exciting behind the wall. maybe.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To your point, though, Ryan, could you back up a slide?
Sure.
To your point, though, Dan, in the bottommost picture towards the right, you can see where the steps lead up to the stage, and that was always a goal of this project, was to be able to continue to use the space as an auditorium when and if necessary, but to then also allow the space to be used all the rest of the time as something that was active and an experience for the kids.
Thank you.
All right.
Ryan, I think you're staying for.
Yes, we did
Oh,
have,
that's right.
you haven't not covered Central yet.
Yeah.
That's the furthest outline. I believe.
That's the schedule.
Oh, I'm sorry. My apologies.
To intro for Ryan, what we have in the agenda is the project development schedule as titled of the planning that's gone on so far for the Central Hauser campus, which is the parking lot and the green space. And last time around, we had some discussion about how this was moving along, kind of that question of when is it really going to happen, and the desire for the space to be more usable, provide more of the facilities that some of the other schools have, like the playground. And so this schedule lays out what we've done so far, and then a couple other calendar items that are coming up. And just, it also serves as kind of a record of the due diligence that's happened so far, and the fact that we continue to meet with the stakeholders, and I'll call them the PE teachers, who really want that green space to have the kids do their PE activities on, and then also the separation of play and parking that we've been talking about for an awful long time now. David smiles, thank you. But one of the reasons, I think, to go higher level on this is whenever we have a capital project, it's in place almost permanently. So while we want to keep moving forward, we don't want to suddenly find ourselves constrained or do something that we regret later.
Sure.
So you've got other
I think
thoughts.
well said. I think that we talked about putting the schedule together because we know it has been and is a long process, and there's a lot of pieces involved in it. I think the first iteration of it, we looked very closely at what pieces would fit in the site, and very closely at pickup and drop off and how that would work. Something that came out of the process was necessarily by separating parking and play, you're reducing play. And so we wanted to make sure that we did our due diligence to look at the PE facilities, make sure that if there was a need or want to do any future expansion or changing, that we didn't lock a site plan in that didn't allow you to do that, or cost you more money to remove something that was recently built. So that's why we've met with the PE teachers, looked at those facilities, and in the coming month, October, we've kind of reorganized the site plan a little bit, and I think that'll be reflective of the entire process, both PE facilities, pick up and drop off, and also an extended green space. So we're excited to show that to you. And then working with the village, looking at parking and how that works with pickup and drop off. That's something that we continue to work with them. We plan to engage with them before we meet with you, so we can give some feedback on what's sort of an acceptable off-street parking threshold that we can target.
And we talked about the PE space for what would be mostly Hauser students, the way the current schedule goes. But the other goal is to make sure that we're building the play structure and a better outdoor play area for Central students.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I
those.
mean, I know that's within the plan. Everyone knows that, but I think it's worth
Yeah, I know.
saying.
Without the picture to look at, it
Yeah.
is all of those pieces. It's
Yeah.
it's the play for Hauser,
Yeah.
play for Central, pick up and drop off, all of those things, and the PE facilities. So a lot of parts. So we just wanted to illustrate that in a schedule that shows we are working at this. We are making progress, and we should have stuff to share soon.
We will. Dealing with outside agencies like the village also adds some time, because there's
Sure.
coordination schedules to be met on their end, and the village has its own things that they're concerned about. Parking is always one of those, and that gets residents concerned if they're going to be affected somehow. And then also out of this work is we've been noting that the locker rooms at the in-houser are a lot. You would probably say a lot. Out of date, certainly not to current standards, so we will be looking to ask DLA to present an MOU to start looking at some concepts for what needs to be done there and what can be done.
And I think one thing to highlight is anytime that we look at capital projects of any size, we always look to find efficiencies and economy of scale. So if there are other things that are a need or are on the long-term plan, we want to make sure that we look if there are any synergies, so those could be included. So, I mean, you get the best value when you do bid that project. So that's, again, part of the process that we would do with this.
So I think I've heard before as well that, given this schedule, this is not something we're looking to do over next summer, correct? This is something that's a couple of years out.
No, this is not 2023 work at this
Right.
point.
So we have bids that will come for board approval in, I just wrote it down.
In October.
October COW meeting, and then
Yeah.
we'll have bids that would come for board approval at the December regular Board of Education meeting.
Correct.
And then the Central Hauser campus, more work to be done. Obviously, we'll continue to bring that back to the board for regular updates. Facility Advisory Committee will continue to meet and review some of that as well.
So how's our auditorium next month and Blythe Park renovation in what, December you said?
Correct.
Yeah.
December.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So moving forward.
And we're looking at the revised site plans for Central in October.
Yes, that's our
Okay.
plan. We've got a couple of meetings scheduled in between there with the village and with facilities, but yeah, that is our plan.
And the meetings with the village could also affect the schedule as
Right,
well.
right, right. I'm just making
No, I
sure
just-
that
I-
we're
sorry.
keeping that.
I'm mentioning that because that has the potential to maybe
Totally
slow down that pace a little bit
If
as we
we
have to
recall
re-
previous projects
as we
that
have to
has added some to
rethink.
the time.
Yes.
Yeah, the goal. Then, is
That's
what-
the goal.
Yeah. Great.
All right. All right.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, which now brings us to new business. The first item, or the only item under new business, is the West 40 proposal communication support for D96.
Yeah, so I brought this to the board for consideration because I really think it fits with the goal around community engagement. And as you know, we continue to look at just ways to improve our communication with families and the community at large. So interestingly, West 40 has created, so West 40 is our Regional Office of Education. They have sort of a new department, which is around communications, specifically to help local school districts like ours that don't have a communications department or specialist. And we certainly value communication with our families greatly and want to continue to regularly update families. I feel like we are coming off of a lot of regular COVID updates, so it's nice to not be writing to families about COVID all the time. But as you all know, having been parents or are parents in the district, you receive regular communication from the school principal, but also from your child's classroom teacher. We had talked, I know the board had talked about also featuring all of you on our website perhaps and sharing information about our Board of Education. So this proposal really started with my reaching out to them, thinking about our strategic plan and how we can continue to update the community and even our own staff around progress with the strategic plan. So one idea would be kind of creating video vignettes that that really feature the strategic plan specifically and the areas that we've addressed and areas that we're continuing to address. And then the community report, as all of you know, we've done that a couple different ways over the past number of years. We've hired an outside consultant. We actually had the communication specialist from Lyons Township High School that subcontracted with us during the summer to do that. This past year, Kathy Perino and I believe her daughter and all of us did a little bit of this and that, working within a template that we already had. I think it's a great report, but I think again could be improved. So West 40 could help us with that in terms of creating perhaps, they're sort of like less is more. Like you have a lot of text in
Yeah,
this one.
very
We have a lot of
text-heavy,
pictures,
yeah.
but we're text heavy. So again, just having that specialist eye on it, I think could improve that and maybe make that even more readable, more accessible for families and for the community. And then the community, what they call here community member social media spotlight would be essentially setting up a template to feature all of you. And then the other thing is kind of taking a kind of broader lens and doing an audit of how our communication strategies are, how effective are they. David, I think once you shared with me that, you know, on a given day, you might get something from me, you might get something from the principal, you might get something from the teacher. So we don't, I have to admit, like, don't have a, you know, real clear coordination of our efforts there. So again, having a specialist take a look at these things, and what feels to me like a pretty reasonable dollar amounts here. It's not, from a dollar amount perspective, it's not something the board has to formally approve, but it is something that very much brushes with all of your work and your goals, as well as my goal around making sure we're engaging the community. So I wanted to share this as one idea. In sort of researching and reaching out to West 40 and talking with other superintendents. There are other organizations, we could look at other proposals. West 40 is a neighbor that's kind of specializing in this. It seemed to be perhaps a good step, but I wanted you to all think about this. And again, this isn't an action item set up as new business. It doesn't really even have to be a board action item. It's more, would value your feedback, obviously.
Well, and so I think my understanding is this is a one-time expense with an idea that our staff would be trained to take some of these lessons and go forward with them, or is this something that might be recurring over time?
So I think the audit could be a one-time, and you might repeat it several years down the road. An audit would be kind of taking their specialized skills and then making recommendations to us, so I see that as a one-time. I think about the video, if we were to do the video strategic planning, I think they come in with a very professional quality that wouldn't necessarily be training us, even though we have some teachers that have done great videos. You've seen some of them here. I think we did a day in the life of a student last year during the pandemic, and that was just giving people insight. So it's just that when I ask a teacher to do that, even though we have some teachers with great skills, it does take a lot of additional time, and it's kind of not quite in their specific teacher role. The community report, I think, is setting a template and kind of setting a new format that then we would implement. So it kind of depends on the different parts of the proposal here. Some are they would come in and do it. Some are they would teach us to do it. Some are a hybrid of that.
Martha, this is very appropriate. It allows us to obviously leverage West 40,
Accidentally.
which
Get your phone.
we're part of.
Did you look at the videos there?
I accidentally clicked the link, yeah.
It sounded familiar.
It was obviously very engaging.
Yeah.
I was trying to scroll down. I won't use the screen anymore.
Yeah.
This, as you said, this is very reasonable, and it's really more where I think we should be at, because we know what our communications issues are, or mostly we think we do, and an audit would perhaps reveal some more, but we know that part of it is engaging with people who don't have kids in the district. That's kind of an obvious why they might not be as engaged with us. I mean, other than tax dollars, as long as we do a good job and they don't hear bad things about us, we're doing okay. And parents have direct, obviously, involvement in our activities every day. There's not much else to our community who's a stakeholder. You either have kids or you're paying taxes.
Or both.
Or both.
So I was wondering, though, why some of these expenses are listed as reduced investment rather than just investment.
I think it's a terminology they use. It's an unusual term. I think what they're trying to point out is that in a non-educational world, something like this might cost a lot more. And so it's a reduced investment based on being part of West 40 and essentially catering to an educational environment. That was my interpretation. I can ask specifically. I kind of made an assumption on that one.
I know we had talked about, or I'd heard about RB using a different company. Yeah. Would it be worth looking into what they offer and what the pricing is there, just as a comparison? This seems very, very moderate for what we're looking at. We're very affordable. I was just curious, is this something we should probably look at another vendor just to see what they offer, or I'm not sure why RB, do we know why RB chose,
And they're doing, I don't want to speak for RB, I think they're doing more of a parent survey around preferred communications. We did that a while back. We tend to hear families want information directly to their inbox. Mm-hmm. Some social media is good. I think we had a conversation about that at our last committee of the whole, that sometimes it's unclear which social media is really reaching families best or most,
Yeah.
but I can certainly look into it.
I'd be curious just
Yeah.
to, you know,
Yeah.
just because we've never done this before,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah,
you know, a quick check
Yeah.
just to make sure we're
Yeah.
moving in the right
yeah.
direction.
And I know a school district that's working with both. They're doing some with, work with West Forty,
Oh,
and they're doing some
that would be
work
interesting
with-
to hear what,
Yeah,
what they're
right,
doing with
yeah,
each, just to
yeah.
make sure that we're
Yeah.
choosing the correct vendor
Yeah,
for the correct
yeah,
project.
yeah.
Yes, yes.
I mean, I like what they have here. I think let's find out what RB is doing, but what they presented here, I think the cost investment's minimal.
Same here.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
think-
think we should spend a lot of time on that.
Right, yeah,
but-
I think it makes total sense, and the fact that they're doing an audit, I think is even great, so they can figure out how we can better communicate. So I think this is, I don't have any concerns with
Me
this at all.
neither. Me neither.
This helps us get to some of the root of the kind of head scratching conversations we were having about that particular goal in the community and the outreach piece and some of the, you know, kind of KPIs and the challenges that we face. We're like, this one's a tricky one.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you for kind of the outreach to get this put together so quickly. I think we're moving in the right direction. Yeah, the curious part of me would like to know perhaps how other schools are leveraging, perhaps, as you mentioned, Linda, RB, but I do like the audit, and I like that it provides, you know, kind of various platforms and mediums between video and the community, you know, print report template, as well as perhaps a little dabbling of, you know, some social media posts.
Yeah, let me take a look at this other group, and I think there are even more out there, but again, I think West Forty is a new partner,
Yeah.
a really viable partner.
Yeah.
And,
A trusted
but
partner.
I'll-
Right,
Yeah,
trust-
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
right, yeah. And they were very responsive. I mean, I kind of heard they had formed this department, met with them, they came over, they put this proposal together, they shared some of their samples. I think, you know, the work looked really professional.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you all for the feedback.
All right. Next up is public comment. Is there any additional public comment? All right, if not, in future meeting dates, October 5th, Committee of the Whole, 7 p.m. at the Hollywood Multipurpose Room. October 19th, regular business meeting, 7 p.m. at the Hauser Learning Resource Center, where we are now. The board will enter into closed session at 6:15 p.m. if necessary, return to open session at 7 p.m. And if there is nothing else, this meeting is adjourned.